starter training for St. John's Swim League. We have Craig Wilcox here who will be being our facilitator today. So I'm going to turn it over to Craig.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Just a quick note. I've been at this game for a while. Not just with porpoises, but then I opted for USA Swimming. So, and an official starter, I guess, certified starter, whatever you want to call it, for USA. I'm also a deck ref there, which is kind of like what an HMO does. They have a couple different types of refs. So this one is good and a very needed position, the HMO one, for St. John's Summer Swim, because somebody has to have the experience and somebody has to have the knowledge and the capability to make a call, to say, no, it's not that way, or yes, that makes sense, let's do it. But they have to be able to say, yes, we're doing it, period. Okay? And that's where experience comes into play. Once upon a time, you couldn't be an HMO unless you had 2 or 3 years of stroke and turn. Volunteerism was a little light for a few years, and so we kind of dropped it down, and in a couple of cases, we had to have HMOs that had no experience, but we tried to make sure that at least they had previous swimming experience, so they were familiar with the strokes and what should be done and everything else. So what we're going to do is just go quickly through this and go from here. Kristen got the training team. We're going to talk about the starter, the HMOs, and Kristen will come around again with the volunteer background check information. So the role of the starter, you guys have been around, everybody's been into a meet at some point, whether it's college, this level, whatever, right? So you hear it, and it comes in different kind of beeps. It's kind of fun to watch it on TV because you hear different little beeps. At least that's for me. I hear it that way. I don't mind watching swimming on TV because it's kind of exciting with some of the camera angles and stuff. Golf, I like golf, don't get me wrong, but so the role of the starter is pretty much the role of the controller of the meet. He or she controls how fast the meet can go. If there's a problem, they slow things down. If things are moving right along, the timers are getting their times in, the computer people are doing their thing, there's no administrative problems, and the people, the ready benches are flowing, they're getting their people down here, down and getting them behind the blocks, then the starter's rolling. He's just said, take your mark. Okay. Please step up, take your mark, get them going. And a well-run meet is a fast meet. We usually start for St. John's around 8 a.m. The best meets are typically, and I hate to put it this way, but are typically the ones in July. Maybe the end of June, but mostly July. Why? Everybody's practiced up. We know what makes a good meet. And so normally we're done around noon, 4 hours. That's kind of an unofficial limit around here. For USA Swimming though, a 4-hour meet's fine. If you go to 401, 402, the team, the host team, has to pay fines to USA Swim. That's a no-no for them. And no team likes to shell out money, right? So there's an incentive to go. Get good people and make them go, right? For us, we sometimes get a little rain and kids don't come in time. Parents don't get their kids up to the ready bench in time. There's various things. Hopefully all you have had mock meets so far, so you're all ready for the meet coming up on Saturday. I'll warn you ahead of time, it might be scheduled 8 to 12. It's going to be both. There's equipment problems, there's kids problems, there's any number of things. It'll happen. The starter is a big factor in that because when around event 20-ish, 25-ish, they start getting the rhythm. The parents figure it out, especially the parents. Okay? The kids really figure it out pretty quickly. Okay? But around then, around the first third of the meet, when that is done, then you'll be able to really get moving. Okay? So the starter's job, and oftentimes the starter will also be the announcer. The starter technically is to say, take your mark, that's it, nothing more. But you'll often have your starter doing event 42, boys 15 through 18, 100-yard butterfly. 3 heats, heat 1, step up. That's the announcement. If you're lucky and have an extra volunteer or two that's not doing anything for you, not running, not handing out water or anything else like that, get them to be the announcer. It makes the starter's life easier so they can concentrate on starting as opposed to having to talk through it all. Not a big deal. You get used to it after a while. So, there it is. Event 1, heat 1, 100-yard medley relay. Boys, or I guess it's girls. 1 heat. And then everybody comes, they should already be in place from the ready bench. And so it's swimmers, step up. Okay? And we're good. Once the starter says something like swimmers stand up, or not swimmers stand up, but swimmers step up, it's all on the starter. Okay? The starter's going to watch. They're going to step up. He's going to say, take your mark. Or she's going to say, take your mark. And you want to say it nice, conversationally, not take your mark. Or take your mark. I'm really tired. It's event 16. No. Take your mark. And then they have the button, the microphone and the plunger button to do the start. It's all in one unit. And starters, don't take the mic from your mouth. Keep it there. Because you don't want to give away when you hit the button. Be not sneaky about it, but swimmers, you don't even have to say swimmers, you just say, take your mark, and then you press the button. And off they go. Pretty much that simple. Starter isn't quite done. They have to watch how people entered the water. Did somebody leave a little early? That kind of thing. What is the starter looking for on this? They want the swimmers to stand there, and when he says or she says, take your mark, he wants them to come down and freeze. Just turn into statues. They might be like this, whatever. The whole point is that there's not anybody fidgeting, losing their balance, fiddling with their their goggles, pulling their chair on to the left, anything like that. So the starter shouldn't call them down, it's called, until everybody's done screwing with their cap and their goggles. Pretty straightforward. Okay? When they look like they're ready, everybody's looking through their goggles, hats are on, okay, take your mark. The moment that everybody is there and still, boom, go. Send it. Watch, and then we're done. Okay? At that point, what the starter should do is pretty simple. They want to look and see what's coming up next. Heat 2. Don't stand them up quite yet, because you want the other people to be able to swim without that added pressure of somebody hovering over them. One big thing, flyover starts. Everybody familiar with what a flyover start is? First heat goes, comes back, hits the wall, everybody's done swimming, the swimmers stay in the water. The next heat gets called up, and they go. Well, after they've gone, the first heat gets up and gets out of the way. And that works. It's not really a flyover, but the same thing is true for the 25s. 25 goes in, goes to the turn end, and get out. In the meantime, the starter doesn't care. Once they reach, a quarter of the way, halfway, the starter's going, okay, heat number 2, heat 2, step up. And so the rest of the kids, especially the 25s, they need a little extra time. The coaches need to get them lined up. You know the drill. You've seen it a million times, I'm sure. They get in place. As soon as that 25 is done, the starter looks back to make sure that everybody's out of the water. If not, it's swimmers, clear the water or clear the pool. The coaches on that end will help. And then it's back to the blocks, and away you go. Heat 2, take your mark, and rinse and repeat. It almost doesn't matter what event it is. But eventually, 2 or 3 heats later, it's going to be, okay, event 23, then event 24, 25. And you just keep going that way. Not too difficult. We don't have the mic handy, but it looks like a cop show microphone. The little kind of square one, like a little badge, kind of almost, right? And it's got a little push to talk button on the side. So when you want to make your announcement, you push it in and hold it. And that's when you say, take your mark. To get the beeper to go though, the actual start, you have to hold in the microphone, and there's a little button at the very top. Hold it in and then press the button. If you don't have that push to talk button held in, the button won't work. And sometimes it's kind of like you have that expectation. Then they're done that. Swimmers, take your mark, and then I kind of let go just enough by accident. Nothing's happening. So it's kind of like you might get somebody jumping in because they're watching you or trying to time you or something else like that. Then hopefully you can just say, swimmers, stand please. And that's a signal to the swimmers to just stand up, come from being down in a position to just stand up and relax. There's a difference in here. This is another one where you might want to stand up. If something doesn't feel right, 99% of the time it's noise. It's the other people in the relay. It's everybody cheering, which you want, and you hate to put to slap that down a little. But everybody's got to hear. That's why the best sound system you can put up is one that you make sure you've got speakers on both ends. And if you notice it, you'll see it at other people's meets where they might have 2 big speakers, both with whatever the starter's saying, where there might be several small ones underneath everybody's block, starting block. So when it's stand please, don't be urgent about it. Your voice triggers these swimmers. You say, swimmer stand please. Because they think, okay, I gotta go. Just stand please. And they'll stand. They'll look around, especially the younger ones. I'm not gonna stand up until somebody else does. Just go with it. Just stand please. And then wait. Quiet down for the start. Please, quiet down for the start. That's it. Just be nice. You're not talking to anybody specific. You just want it to go out and say, do this. Shh, just a minute. Just for the start. Let it sit for just a second. Okay? And down here, if there are still issues following a second try, you would say, swimmers, take your mark. And if you're still hearing too much noise, there's still kids running somewhere, somebody fell in, or down lane, something like that, stand up again. Or if it's really bad and you you gotta do something about it as a starter, or the HMO asks you, hold, stop for a second. Then you would say, swimmers relax. Stand means stand up on the block and stay there. Swimmers relax means you can get down if you want. You can stay up on the block, you can sit down on the block, do whatever you want. Just don't go far. If they get down, that's good. You might want to warn them and say, swimmers don't go far. You know? And so the HMO then is in control of the meet from that point, saying, okay, they're going to take care of what's wrong or what the issue is. They'll walk down, tell kids to come in, talk to parents, keep your kid in line. They're the bad guys, they're the heavyweight. And they'll wave at you again if they're on the other side of the pool. They'll come back up and say, go ahead, it's okay, let's go. So it's swimmers, step up. Maybe they're already up, but that's okay. Take your mark. Hopefully then they go. The most I've ever had to do is twice. Ever. Even in the USA schools. It's just, they listen. Eventually, they get it. They want to be out of it. Here's the key. Make sure that every swimmer receives a fair start. That's why they go down into their start and you're seeing somebody do this. And you got a choice. You can either screw with them, meaning you start, you hit the button the minute that they rock backwards because it's going to take them 2/100ths of a second or 3/100ths of a second to go forward and get going, right? Or you just say, swimmers, stand up. So that's why earlier I mentioned you want them to come down and turn into statues. Period. Here it is. Do not develop a fixed timing pattern for the starts. Send the field when they're ready, not automatically every, take your mark, doop, take your mark, doop, and don't try to time it yourself. It's very difficult because we fall into patterns very easily. I do it all the time, unfortunately, and I have to remind myself of exactly this. Watch them, they're stones, they're statues, boop. Watch them, boop. Watch them. Somebody's wobbling, somebody's wobbling. Okay, swimmers stand, please. You don't want to hold them down there too long, especially backstroke. Because it takes some beef to lift yourself up and out of the water. Speaking of backstroke, do you have that? Second part. We have it in here. Speaking of, while you're waiting, and you say, okay, the backstroke starts just a teensy bit different. It's swimmers enter the water, please. They get in. And at the same time, if you're using flyovers, the next person, the person that just swam comes out. Okay? Now, watch what the swimmer's doing, how they get in the water. They're supposed to remain in contact with the wall. Well, none of them do. Okay. If they just jump in a little ways, to the side, and they're not far from the wall or anything, it's okay. Now, if there's jokers that, take a run, if you're within your right. The rule book says you can't do that. It describes exactly how to enter the water, which I just told you. They're supposed to enter with their hand on the side, or jump in and grab the gutter or something like that. Okay, so watch that. If you just want to warn them, you can. Just say, swimmer lane 4, enter the water properly next time, please. Don't look up any names. You got all the names and stuff on your heat sheet. Just refer to it by lane. Backstroke, right? So it's edge of the water. Okay, and then it's swimmers, take your mark, and they're supposed to swim back and be ready. Pull themselves up and go, right? Watch the toes. It's your responsibility until that button goes to watch their toes. They can't, this is the wall or the gutter. They can't put their toes ground. They can stick them up a little bit so that they can't curl, but they can't start with their toes curling over the gutter like that, because they'll push off of it and use that. So if you see that, if you see one lane, swimmer in lane 5, toes please. And they know what it means. They'll, ooh, and they'll be all embarrassed because everybody's watching that. The other thing is, we should have gone over this in stroke and turn if you guys went all through this one, is that when the starter hits the button to start it, the stroke and turn judge now has jurisdiction on the start. And if the toes come back up, curl, and go, they can be DQ'd for that. So there's all kinds of little tricks that swimmers, especially the older ones, will use. So this one is to be ready if there's a DQ or if something happens that you need to stop the race for whatever reason it may be. Okay? The way you do that is, you remember the start where you have to have the button, the talk button closed or pushed in, and then you can start them. If you push the talk button in and press and hold the start noise, the start button, the beeper, it tells the system to go beep, 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 beep. It's never loud enough. There's always some joker, especially the little kids who don't hear it, and they go swimming. And this is where assistant coaches or junior coaches, whatever you want to call them, come into play, because they have to jump in and swim to get the kids and stop them and send them back. Then it becomes a headache for the starter and the HMO to reschedule. Do we want to just run them right away, or do we want to let them sit for another heat or two, that kind of thing. It gets to be that way even at USA meets. So, moral of the story is, hopefully the coaches are teaching them, don't DQ. Don't false start. Don't do that. Here's a big rule. This gives the starter a lot of power. If something that the starter saw appears to them to have precluded a fair start, you remember from the slide before, a fair start didn't happen, then the starter can bring it back. Doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes it could. They go beep, and suddenly a beach ball goes into the water. Okay, and lane 6 gets hit with it. Everybody else is okay, but lane 6 got distracted. That would be a good reason or a good example for this. Okay. You have a heat sheet as a starter, hopefully on a clipboard, and it's a good idea to mark that heat sheet up, just like the stroke and turn people have to do. How do you mark it up? Any way you want, as long as it says this lane is empty. Circle the lane, circle the number, the lane number. Put a little square around it. Say empty, an M and a T, empty. With a line through it, maybe something. Because especially at champs, we look at those. If there's a question, if there's a thing at the end or there's a coach's challenge, a coach's question, something like that, we can go back and we can recreate that without video. We can recreate that swim. Say, okay, they started at this time and these lanes were empty and this and that, and this is what the stroke and turn judge saw, that kind of stuff. And that's important to do. Documentation, seems trivial, but it's important. For USA swim starters, there's a half a dozen, I swear, little symbols for that. False start, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of weird. False starts. I mentioned it a few times. The swimmer starting early. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that their feet leave the blocks before everybody else? No, they could just be really fast. Those twitch muscles are really good for them. Okay, you know, after they hear the button. Now, what it really means is, and this is a kind of a hard concept, at least I found it hard to begin with, but in front of the block, picture a large pane of glass. Okay? And that glass is as long as is 6 lanes wide, and it's about 10 feet tall. It goes from the surface of the water up above the swimmer. Okay, it's a big picture. The swimmers are down, they're getting ready to go, and one of them starts leaning and makes contact, or, although it's not glass, is able to put their hands through it as they move. They broke that pane of glass or that plane, and that is a false start. When they come down, and you've heard me say this before, you want statues. Bring it down and turn it to stone. Right then, right there. Pretty straightforward. Down and freeze. Hard to do your best with little kids. Because all of them fidget. They're all, you know, oh wait, let's not. Even my own kid does it. That's, you know, he's always trying to dig in with that back foot. You know, he's 16. Come on. You should already know what your stance should be. But if this starts up, if you see this, they break the pane of glass, something like that, and you see it early enough, choke off what you were saying, and just go to swimmer stand. That's all you need to do, nothing else. Usually that kind of stuff will happen with older swimmers because they're trying to time you. That goes back to what I talked about earlier. Don't let them time you. When they come down and the statues go. If you can't stand them, then not like you dislike them, but if you can't get them to stand because it's just too late in the sequence and they're going to go, they can be DQ'd at the end of the race. Let's talk about a special circumstance of that, where they're leaning, and they lose their balance. Bam, go right in. How many times have you seen that? Like 100. Okay. St. John's Summer Swim League official, I guess, rules are: the first one, don't ask, don't tell. False start is charged to the field. And that's what you want to announce. False start charged to the field. Meaning nobody's at fault. It's just strike one. That same swimmer does it again. Right the next time that they get called down. So they're leaning down and they go DQ, false start. It is then at the HMO's or your starter discretion if they want to let them swim for no time or just take them off the deck. Harsh to take them off the deck. But either way, they're going to see that they didn't get a time because they're not going to get a time even if they are allowed to swim. Okay, it's going to say Crandall, Bobby, DQ, no time. You know, when the sheets get posted during the course of the meeting. So take your pick. It's sometimes better to just call them down, break the slip up, and then hand it to the coach, because the coach saw it. Oh boy, there's a ton of these things. Okay. Don't refer to them, the swimmers, as ladies and gentlemen. They may be, especially if you got 17 and 18 or 15 through 18s, you know, and young gentlemen and young ladies and stuff, and swimmers. Or sometimes you'll see on the heat sheet, it'll say boys and girls. Boys and girls is a little too, so most of the time, that's why we say swimmers. When you make the call as the starter and announce, event 35 boys, 25-yard, individual medley, whatever it is. That's fine. That's the name of the event. But if you are telling them to get up or step down or do other things, swimmer. It's just easiest to remember that. These guys, number 2 here, don't ad-lib these if you can. Okay? Sometimes there's a special circumstance, but otherwise, for the most part. Something that changed a couple of years ago with USA and it's trickling and all that stuff trickles down, right? Is this phrase. Take your marks. Take your marks, please. Not English. It actually trickled down from the European version of USA Swimming called FINA. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce the French part of that. If anybody's got French, it's better something du national, whatever. Instead of what it used to be, which was very simple, swimmers take your mark, because each individual swimmer has one mark. But they apparently looked at it as a whole and said, there's a bunch of swimmers, therefore there are a bunch of marks. And so we're going to say, take your marks. So if you've got someone like me who has experience in USA, or somebody like that comes in who originally learned it as take your mark, be nice. Because we're struggling. Take your mark is, I think, correct. That's my bias. Relax. Swimmers relax. Might get their attention a little bit better, but otherwise, as you grow higher, older, relax, please. Here's we talk about lane 5, toes. And again, you don't need to yell at them, not even if it's loud and crazy out there. If need be, you stop. The HMO is usually not too far away. Let them go and tell lane 5 to watch their toes. Okay? The head timer with the dual stopwatches shouldn't be very far from you, and send them. Or as a starter, you could just put your microphone down and take a little walk. That's perfectly fine. And say, hey, lane 5, keep your toes in the water, please. Okay? And then they'll understand and they'll do it, hopefully. And you come back and you just start up again. No big deal. Extra commands normally are asked for by the HMO. I know we're not supposed to say ladies and gentlemen here, so you can just say thank you, swimmers. Or a lot of times I'll just sort of get away with it by, please clear the pool. We try to at least be a little nice about it. Or clear the pool, please. Make sense? Okay. Your H starters, one more thing, a couple of things. Your HMO might ask you as a starter to run the timers meeting. Everybody know what a timer does? They write count names, and they verify names, and they write down stopwatch times and turn the sheets in, right? Nothing difficult, but it can be a little bit busy sometimes because of 50-yard boys freestyle gets. I mean, they're done. 5 heats can get done in a minute and a half or 2 minutes. It's crazy. Okay. So if you are asked to do that, then go ahead and do it. But how? How many here have timed before? Okay? Y'all know what to do. There's only a couple of things extra that I really try to emphasize during a timer briefing. Okay? And that is get up to the wall and look down. You can't tell when they touched by standing back here if the wall's up there. You can't see through concrete. Maybe you can. I'd like to meet Superman and talk some more about that capability. But get up there. Tell them get up there. If somebody's in your way, you got other swimmers, you got other relay people. Relay swimmers should be back behind anyway. But sharpen those babies up. The stroke and turn people are up there. They're in your way. Get them out of the way. Okay? But the whole point is remind them. Get up there and look. So you're going to get wet. What? It's a pool. What do you think is going to happen? Okay. The other one is I guess just be ready and warn them about the fact that they should have their step counter on, their steps watch on, because going down to the turn and coming back to the start and then going back down to the turn and back and forth. Just tell them to be ready and give them a little hint. Say, hey, when you get down there, I'm just going to run the lanes. So say, lane 1, are you ready? And if you are, just wait, both of you. There's usually two timers, right? Just wait. You ready, lane 1? Yeah. Lane 2? Yep. Up 3, 4, 5. Good. We're ready to go. We get the okay from the HMO, and off we go. The whole idea is just that. Quick, quick, quick. We want to try to get done. The fastest we've ever gotten done was, oddly enough, in Southampton. The guy's name that ran it was Derek, and it was an Italian name. Started with a C, I can't remember. Anyway, he knew what he was doing with this stuff. And we were up and out of there at an 8 o'clock start, and we were done by 11:20 a.m. And you know part of how we did that? Timers, I'm starting the next heat while you're still walking. Let's go. And he did. So the 25 yards got done, right, the last event, and it was okay, timers come down to the start end. Timers, be ready. And then he'd go over here and say, okay, event 37, boys, 50-yard, breaststroke. Swimmers take your, step up, and the timers wouldn't be back. So then he'd look again, make sure all the timers, and then he'd say, take your mark. And the timers would have to stop, wait for the light, go. And then they'd finish their walk and get water or whatever they needed. So, starter-wise, you got to take a bio break, something like that. You need to go sit down. It gets hot. You should have a tent, but you know how it is around here. Talk to your HMO. Your HMO should be able to step in. Somebody else should be able to step in. The second half starter, or if you, which is very common, you usually just do the whole meet. Have somebody else step in. And don't do 2, 3, 4 events depending on how many heats and stuff. And then you come back and move. HMO. Oh boy. Okay. First rule of HMO. And it's not really a rule. None of this is per se, but it is a recommendation. Rules. extra pencils, extra paper, blank, a notebook even, an extra copy of the heat sheet, anything that you can think you might need down the road. Nicely protected from those splashes in the water. Sort of. Okay, and then down here, I happen to like it. The other important thing to have, besides sharpening pencils, is a good marker. You will get 10 or 12 parents coming up and say, hey, we didn't have a marker this morning. Do you have a marker that we can, write stuff on our kids, give them mustaches and stuff? Have it ready, because it will be appreciated. So this one hasn't really had a lot of use lately, and it's kind of worked out. I meant to give it to you. Okay, rule book's in there. Although these days you can download for free your rule book right here, if there's a question. HMOs, officials meetings start no later than about 7:30. Officials meetings that you want to run. Stroke and turn, separate meeting. Timers, separate meeting. If you want to run a ready bench meeting, feel free. Or just talk to your head ready bench person, because they're worth their weight in gold. Okay? If somebody can keep track of all those cats and herd them right, more power to them. It's crucial to the meet. The starter can start them and keep things moving, but he can't do it, or she can't do it without people coming off that ready bench, ready and down to where the starting blocks are. There's nobody down there to call, to start to say step up. Well, it's just time wasting, and it's getting closer to noon. So we want to do that. The stroke and turn officials will write up DQ slips and sign them. And sign them. And they will turn those in, usually a runner or somebody like that. Sometimes the HMO will make a spin around and will collect these from the stroke and turners. Okay? Now remember, I got my HMO hat on today, or right now, not starter hat. So as an HMO then, you'll collect these and you'll look at them. And you'll say, does this make sense? This is the first question you ask yourself. Is everything filled in right? Do they have an event number that's already been done, not one in the future? Do they have a heat number? Do they have a lane number? Do they have the swimmer? You don't have to have the swimmer's name, but if you can, read a good idea. Team, PCP for plantation swim club, whatever it is. I forget. Instead of JCP, it's PCP, official. And then they'll check off what went wrong. Was it the butterfly, the backstroke, the breaststroke, or freestyle, and then some other things. It's up to the stroke and turner to fill it out correctly, and they will sign. Your job is to look at it and picture in your mind, what did the stroke and turn judge see? Did they see alternating kicks? Something like that? They're kind of, or you as an HMO are kind of half coach and half stroke and turn judge. Because as the stroke and turn judge, you say, okay, this is all the things that I saw, or this is what I saw. As coach, you're looking here, well, what can I challenge today? What's not right with this sheet? And they'll look through it, they'll look really carefully about it, and they'll challenge anything. They'll challenge an erase mark, or one that's been erased 2 or 3 times. This has happened at Champs, because, quote, I can't read it. And then by the time it goes back to the judge, they think, okay, the actual stroke and turn judge can't remember. We have been teaching in the stroke and turn world write it down on your heat sheet. And keep your heat sheet in, because then you can go back to the heat sheet. Oftentimes your HMO will say, listen, this is a little messy. You know, can you redo this one? Re-sign it and then go from there. Just to make it nice and clean. Okay? We want to try to remove any questionable activity or any questionable calls that the coach might have. So you go through here and you say, okay, all looks good. It goes back to the computer admins. They mark it as a DQ. You know how many of these things come in during 8 and under breaststroke? You know, no kidding. Probably what, Kristen? 20, 30, 50? Stacks. Depends. But lots. You can't always stay up. If you can, more power to you. But try to stay up with it. If you look at it and you find something that you just don't quite get, you got your stroke and turn a hat on now and you say, I can't figure out what they're doing. So you walk up, you just amble on over, you just walk over to the stroke and turn judge, and you say, hey, you got your heat sheet handy for event 42, heat 3, lane 6? And they'll go, yeah, because they're trying to watch the water and everything else. Okay, what did you see? As an HMO, that is your one and only question. What did you see? Tell me. And they need to explain to you in swim terminology what they saw. You don't want to see, well, I saw their arm this way, and their kick was out here, and no. Just say, no, just tell me. We don't need to be demonstrated. I get that something is wrong. Just tell me what you saw. And if you say, well, it was an alternating kick when they were doing this, or it was the butterfly and their legs weren't, they weren't in the same plane. But we know from stroke and turn judging that that's okay, as long as they're not doing this kick. You know, switching feet, that kind of thing, because then that suddenly becomes a form of alternating. Where you're going to see it worse in that kind of thing is stroke and turn judges will have questions on breaststroke. The breaststroke kick is hard to judge, because when the kids leave you, if they're coming home from the turn in, or if they're leaving from the start, 10 and under, I'll even go that far. 10 and under, maybe even 10 and 11s and under, will almost invariably scissors kick instead of breaststroke kick. And so you have to be able to explain what a scissors kick is. At least if I were the HMO. You'd say, well, they did a scissors kick on the breaststroke. Oh, I see, okay. Which way were their hips? Do you remember? Can you picture that back? Because to do a scissors kick, unless they were doing it like this, straight up and down, their hips are usually twisted. So I'll ask a question like that to say, well, which way were they kind of laying on? You know, maybe they were doing the arms okay, but tell me that. You know, and if you do it correctly, it's, well, they were kind of canted this way because they were scissoring with their left foot, or their right foot back and their left foot forward. Okay, cool, you get it, you saw it. I believe that. You had the detail. Don't lie about it, of course, now that I've told you the secrets. Okay. But that's what you want to look at. Sorry, stroke and turn judges shouldn't lie about it. HMOs, you know the secret now, what to ask. And check their general demeanor. You know, they okay? Notice who they are. Are they writing up the opposing team more than our team? Because in theory, it should be pretty even. I mean, kids are kids, that kind of thing, right? So look for those kinds of little anomalies. Oh, here's the deal. Since I think most of you went through how to fill this guy out. We have a few other small pieces, and I know it's real hard to see here, but we have individual medley.
I'm gonna start with freestyle, sorry.
That's okay. Oh, that's all right. Freestyle. No touch on turn. It looks like that's the only oops there. It's not really. Freestyle could be down here, 2, 7. They might be swimming, they bang into the rope, and so they kind of grab the rope and go like this to get going again, right? See that in the little kids. The older kids know better. It's called gaining propulsion. So they can't do that. They can't pull on the rope. If they're swimming along and getting tired, and they stop and grab the rope, grab the lane divider, okay. That's okay. They can stop. They can't go and lean back. Actually, they can with freestyle. Freestyle is freestyle is freestyle. They can do it pretty much whatever they want. They can't stop and spring off the bottom and push themselves forward to get going. Again, gaining propulsion. And that's on here too. Walking or springing from the bottom. Pulling on lane lines. Down here is where you've got false start and did not finish. Did not finish is actually a DQ. Has to be. Just by definition. Here's the zoom in on backstroke. There's a ton of these things in here. And as stroke and turners, it's their job and me to look at those and say, which one was it? And again, if they light this thing up and check off 4 different things, you don't necessarily want that. You should ask them to please fill out technically 4 of them. Okay? But what I usually do is fill out 1 or 2 with the most egregious one, the one that was the worst. Like a scissors kick. Very easily identified. Coaches have seen this one since the day 1 of swim. They know what it looks like coming, going from the side, everything. So I would pick, personally, as a stroke and turn, I would pick a scissors kick if that was one of the violations, and the other ones that are kind of as hard, but that are very obvious are these delays. Remember the delays from the class? You just okay, now I can start my turn, or my foot turn. You don't want that. Be aware in backstroke, be aware of the different kinds of turns that are available. You as an HMO, also watch. You as an HMO should be carrying DQ slips. Head meet official. That means you're not only a starter and can call DQs or call false starts, but you're also a stroke and turn judge when you're walking around, and you can call stroke violations and turn violations. You better be darn sure, because if you're HMOing and you make a call, be darn sure of it, because the coaches will ask about that. Well, where were you? You're not one of the normal stroke and turners in the corners. You know, where were you walking? And you say, well, I was behind block 4 and they were coming at me. Okay. Yeah, kind of takes the wind out of your sails right away. Document it. You should also, as HMO, have your heat sheet, right? Write it down. Breaststroke stuff. Alternating kicks. You know, we've gone through all of these with stroke and turn. This is where I mentioned the scissors kicks, that kind of thing. You just need to know what they are so that you can question the stroke and turn judges. You're just not quite sure. What do? Hey, tell me what you saw. Let's look at your heat sheet. Maybe notice I'm purposely lowering my voice and just trying to inject a little calm. Kristen can tell you, normally I'm up here jumping around and doing all kinds of things. Butterfly, much the same thing, the one we see a lot, not just with the breaststroke, but with the butterfly, because it is a little difficult. Remember, two-head touch, at, above, and below. They can be this way, they can be this way, they can be this way. They can be up here, in the middle, down low. It can be any of that, right? Okay, a lot of times you're going to see hit and a brush. Okay? That's another reason why, as a stroke and turn official, you should also be like a timer and up here looking really close, especially on the turn end, because we've got a lot of 50-yard things that go on, right? So especially at the turn end, you're here, you're looking. And unless you can really, truly make the honest call that they missed the wall on that brush, the benefit of the doubt always goes to the swimmer. And it's hard because the water's doing this, bubbling up. And what do? You know? You can't see for sure, but you make your best guess. Was it in the neighborhood? Yeah? Okay. Benefit of the doubt. You gotta go with that. That's just the rule, kind of, that we go under. Individual medley, the only trick on this as far as the heat sheet go, or the DQ slip goes, is if they make a call here on the IM, then what you want to do is you want to go back up to whatever stroke it was, mark like it was a regular event, not just an IM, but the regular, say, breaststroke, and they were doing an alternating kick. But you also want to come down here and check the 5 box and say breaststroke alternating kick. So it would be 3A, and you want to put 3A in this spot. That's something that I would tell the stroke and turners. What I tell the HMOs is look for the 3A. Because if you hand it in that way, and the HMO looks at it and misses it, and it goes to the coach is going to say, well, there is another free one. And they'll turn it back in and say, hey, what stroke? What was the infraction? It's clearly marked up here, but it's not here in the right race, or in the right type of race. So they'll let it. Oops. Now, if you really want to, you can go back to the stroke and turn judge and make them amend it, and then send it back to the coach and try to make nice with the coach. It really depends on the coaches. Relay is much the same here. Stroke infraction, it's the same as any relay or the IM that we looked at. What swimmer number was it? 1, 2, 3, or 4. Early takeoffs. We haven't done a lot of early takeoffs the last year or two because it's hard to get the volunteers to do it. But your HMO should explain it to you. It's very easy. You put one judge at one end, one judge at the other end by the blocks. Okay? And you just watch when the swimmer comes in, after the first one to start, comes in. If the person on the block leaves early, before the one in the water touches the wall, then that's an early takeoff. And it's pretty easy. You just say, hey, swimmer number 2 took off early. And again, down here, where was it? Somewhere down here. Here, early takeoff. You want to mark that it says early takeoff, swimmer number. Order of swimmers, we don't really track most of the time because of when people show up, nobody's ever there. Everybody isn't always there at 8 a.m. So they check in later or they leave early, especially with the end of the meet relays. They all do their thing. Now they've got 20 events to meet. Oh crap. Well, we'll go anyway. Coach wants somebody. And so they're out. And so they just have to substitute somebody in. So we really don't enforce that too much. Now in the swimmers, we absolutely do, because you may only swim one per. Again, this is sounding more and more like stroke and turn than HMOs, but that's what you're going to see on those DQ few slips. Conflicts and resolution. DQ challenges. You, as an HMO, will get a coach, your coach or the opposing coach, will challenge the call. Used to worry about it. Don't anymore. They are what they are. You find the facts out. I don't know if anybody's old enough here, but there's a show called Dragnet. The big watchword was just the facts, man. And you just want to get the facts. And then you, as the HMO, in theory, one of the most knowledgeable people on that deck, make the decision. And so here's the slip that you're looking at, or you're looking for, right? You're looking at, and the coach has come back, and there's a slip that comes with it. It says coach's challenge, and it gives the event and heat and swimmer information, and then it has a question on it. And it's your job to answer the question. Now, if that question isn't clear, meaning it's 3 or 4 questions, okay? Or if it just doesn't seem to make sense to you, go back to the coach and say, Coach, what are you asking here? What are you really asking? What can I get from you that tells me? And they'll hopefully clarify. And then echo it back to them. This is like communication 101 in industry kind of thing. Echo it back to them to make sure that you understand what they want. And say, I'll find that answer out. And then you go do your thing. Okay, this was the first half stroke and turn judge from turn and lanes 4, 5, and 6. So I got to go talk to them. So you go find them, whether they're still up there or whether they're seated somewhere, right? You go find them and say, hey, you still got your lead sheet? Yeah, let's talk about this. What did you see? What's going on? You come back, and based on that information, you make a decision. You say, no, I have to hold up the stroke and turn. They made the right call. Or, that's pretty iffy. I think the benefit of the doubt has to go to the swimmer, because the stroke and turn judge just didn't quite convince me that this is what they saw. They wrote it up, maybe correctly, but maybe not exactly correctly, or maybe not exactly what they saw. And you just got a little funny feeling about it, okay? It's a judgment call. That's, half this game is judgment. Now, the alternate, of course, is this. You come up and you say, Coach, I'm talking to the stroke and turn judge, and Coach, I'm really sorry about this one, but I can't, the benefit of the doubt has to go to the swimmer. There's just not enough information that the stroke and turn judge had. And so I'm putting it in my pocket, and I'll get the computer person to take it out, and then times will come. Thanks for understanding, and thanks for asking. And then you're done. That's all it has to be. Absolutely, all it has to be. It's very simple. What are some of the not so simple things? Stroke and turn judge, standing up, watching things. It's breaststroke time. They're about 50 heat sheet entries behind, and going, oh, I'm dying here. I got so much work to do, so many slips to fill out. So, I can step back and take a minute, because everybody's on the other end. They're out. I don't have to watch them for a minute or two. So they start writing up slips. Are you DQing my kid? The stroke and turn judge should have one and only one thing to say. No, I'm filling out forms. Please talk to your head coach. Now, I don't want to do that. I want to know from you, because you're the one here in the lane you swam in. I want to know. Tell me. And you might even, do a little intimidation kind of thing. Or she. There are some moms that are pretty much in your face sometimes, right? And so, you know, and they just won't go talk to your coach for an answer. Stop the meeting. Get a hold of the starter. He's usually the guy that's watching. The HMO is busy taking care of other things. The starter, however, gets the attention of the HMO very quickly. And the starter will say, hey, stroke and turn judge down in lane 2 needs some help. So you walk down there and you let the meet go on because it's your job then to deflect that parent. Pretty straightforward. If you can't, and you start running into problems, hopefully you have a second HMO available, okay? Or you start getting the starter's attention, you start getting another stroke and turn judge's attention, and you get a couple of people up there. Not to escalate, they're not going to be in anybody's face, but they're just to help control. They're watching carefully. You, as the HMO, can make the call. 911. St. Johns County doesn't put up with crap. They will be there now. Somebody's taking pictures from behind the blocks. Sir, please, no pictures from behind the blocks. We have this nice area set up for you. You get to take really great action shots of them coming off the blocks for the start. Please come on down here. Governor David Mark. Same guy. Sir, I've asked you, please, I need you to move down here. This is important. This is a St. John Summer League rule, and this is the USA Swimming rule, and we need you to come down here. Please. So back. HMO sends her on with the starter to do his thing and watches a little bit. Finally, the guy's back at it again. 911. And you just explain. You don't even have to call 911. You can call the non-emergency line and just tell them. They'll send somebody. Make sure that your insurance and incident forms are immediately available. The HMOs should have this. There should be incident forms within a lifeguard shack if you have them. They should be everywhere. Get witness statements. Who saw what, when, and how. Stop the meet if you have to. Chances are, if it's that bad, you're going to have to anyway because you're going to get an ambulance in there and the whole 9 yards, right? If you're in a facility that allows first aid, be very careful if you have a first aid kit, to bring one. Because while it's a nice thing to do, if you're not a certified first responder, first aid person type thing, you're covered a little bit with Good Samaritan Act and stuff like that, but you need to be working within your, I forget what the word is, within your capability and training. You know, like you can't set a bone because you haven't had that training, but you could stick a Band-Aid on maybe. The best rule is hopefully mom and dad are nearby, mom or dad or guardian are nearby, and you don't even recommend it. You open the kit and you say, what do you need? Do you need a Band-Aid? Do you need a piece of gauze, a 4x4, whatever you happen to have? And say, please, we happen to have one here, go ahead, take it. And then you clean it up. You take care of your daughter or son or whatever it is. That keeps us out of hot water. And also pre-meet, actually. Check with the other coaches, or check with the coaches. You know, hey, Porpoise's coach, are you ready? You ready to get this going? Yep. Hey, Sharks coach, are you ready to go? Yep. Okay, let's go. Starter. Move it. Let's roll. Okay, if any kind of questions, feel free.
If you haven't already done your volunteer background check, please make sure that you do that. I will send all of you the slides for today, the worksheets that Craig spoke about, as well as a link to our background check. Anybody who is a coach, a board member, stroke and turn, HMO starter, needs to make sure that they've got a background check completed. What will happen is, after that background check has been completed, I get a report with everybody who has been cleared, and then I send badges to your team representatives, and they will be printing them up. So when you're the HMO and you're filling out the DQ slips at the bottom, you'll be signing it as the judge, as the HMO, and then it also says badge number, and that will be the numbers that are on the badge you will receive. So, any questions, comments? Thank you guys for coming.
Well, I don't have questions on that. I've got a couple of questions on the HMO training.
Sure.
So first of all, I mentioned those. We are instructing the stroke and turns, generally no notes apart. You're checking boxes and signing, but no notes on the DQ slips.
Correct.
Apart from
Left hand, right hand.
right hand only, right hand first.
Right.
In the case of now, but on a scissors kick question, whether they're over on the right or over on their left, we're not noting that. Now,
So scissors.
just scissors, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the only note that will be here will be on a two-hand touch, whether it's right
And
only or
you
right.
make that as succinct as you can. R-L for right then left.
Right.
L-R.
That actually goes on the slip. So in the next part was when we're going to the questioning you said. We go back. I got the coach came back, gave me a slip back. I'm talking to my stroke and turn judge, and I'm asking him this though. Okay, the scissors kick, was he over on his right or was he over on his left?
Mhm.
And he says, I don't remember. I know I wrote it down. I know I saw a scissors kick. It's just up to you to ascertain whether he really is confident in his judgment. Is that right?
Use your own experience, because I know you've been on deck for years.
Yeah.
Use your own experience to ask the next question. Well, what else did you see? If you didn't see his hips, which is fine, what else did you see? Were his feet in any special position? Were they up or down? Were they just not together?
But the bottom line is, I'm just trying to suss out how confident he is in
Yes.
his right. Okay,
Yes.
so that's big. And then once I've determined that, then on the final criteria, I go back to it's up to me. I'm going to say whether I believe in his slip or not. And when I go back to the coach and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna uphold this slip.
Yep.
And this is what he said, and I'm convinced he really saw this, and so I judge that this one's good. And then, like you said, if he then continues to argue it, then we go into the whole committee question.
Then it goes to the committee question.
And who sets up that committee, and how is that established?
If I remember right, it's a specific set of individuals, and so it's not really set up per se, other than we know it's the opposing coach, we know it's this coach, and we know it's the HMO, and maybe another HMO or two if you have one,
Okay.
from each team, and maybe a stroke and turn judge from each team. That wasn't
not the one, but the one that made the call, he's not in that
No.
meeting at all, right?
No, he could be there,
Right.
but
He's-
or she could be there,
Right.
but yes,
Yeah.
only for you asking them, rephrasing the question properly.
Because it's coming down to me as the HMO.
Right.
I'm
You are
arguing
standing
this.
in for that
Right.
stroke and turn.
Okay. On the early takeoffs, you said judge on either end. And my understanding is we need two judges to agree, right? What's the rule?
Yes, the rule is, well.
And one of those is the starter, I think, right?
You want the ideal answer, or
Well,
the ideal world, or do you want
In the real world, yeah, in the real world, we don't have a second judge on the far corner.
On the near corner.
Well, on the opposite side of the starter, right?
Oh,
You got the starter on one side,
yeah,
and theoretically he's one,
right.
and then on the other side.
On the turn end on the far.
Oh no, I meant on the opposite. The starters by lane one, at the blocks. The early takeoffs are all at the blocks. So
Yeah.
so the starters on lane one, looking down the blocks, and you need another judge by lane 6, looking the other way down the blocks.
On the blocks, right.
At the blocks. And so between those two judges, they both have to have seen it.
They both have little slips like this. They both either circle or X.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that particular event, or at the end of the relays, they compare notes. And if they match, it's an early takeoff DQ.
But who's that other judge?
The other judge hopefully is another HMO from the other team,
Okay.
preferably, since the starter's your team.
So you assign, somebody is actually assigned to that duty?
Not really, no. You could, if the opposing team has a good volunteer,
Yeah,
a volunteer person who's a volunteer coordinator, then that would be one of those positions that would get filled.
okay,
For instance, we do have a visiting HMO spot when we ask for volunteers when we travel.
okay,
Okay, and so they go up and introduce themselves to, hi, I'm Craig, I'm the other HMO. Yell for me if you need me, otherwise I'll be here for relays.
and that's their job then, they're supposed to be across from the starter,
Yeah.
watching the relay starts.
Right, and where you run into problems with people is technically the 25s have relays, the littles have
Well, yeah,
relays.
right,
So you gotta have two more
Yeah.
on the turn-in.
sure,
Try to get that many people. What I usually have done in the past is I'll use a couple of the stroke and turns.
but
Either
they have to be
off-duty
dedicated to
ones
that.
or something.
They're not the stroke and turns that are already doing the stroke and turn.
No, they're different ones. They're off-duty
Additional,
ones.
right,
Right, like session one ones,
yeah.
that kind of.
The only time anecdotally that I've ever seen this come up is like all the stroke and turn judges, timers, everybody saw an early start. But the starter was distracted and didn't see it at all. And there wasn't another judge. We had 2 or 3 people that saw it,
Yeah,
that are officials, and I have it on my slip for early takeoff. And so I went ahead and wrote early takeoff, but it's not my job
nope.
and it's not my jurisdiction.
But
And so-
you can make that call as HMO, provided that you saw it.
HMO can, right,
Absolutely.
yes, okay.
So if I'm the visiting HMO, when the
Yeah.
relays come, I should make sure I'm out on the deck and I have,
Yeah, make sure you make contact with if you're visiting,
Yeah.
make sure you contact with the home HMO
okay,
and tell them like just exactly what I said. Hey, I'm the visiting HMO, I'm, Jane, whatever, and I'll be out on deck for the relays,
okay,
for early takeoffs. And then what you do is you stop in, because you're gonna need slips with a pencil.
right,
You stop into the starters table is usually where they keep all that, not always. Okay, find the HMO and say, okay, I'm ready for this. Obviously, you're coming down a couple of events ahead.
right,
And then you walk over to the far corner, away from the starter, and then do your thing for early takeoff. If we're fat with judges or HMOs, if you happen to have extra, very rare, you stick them on the 25-yard end because it's done really quick. There's only a few heats done for the 25s, and we're done. And then they can go do their thing, and we're all happy.
And then one last question.
Yeah.
So in the authority, as the HMO, you do have the authority, correct me if I'm wrong, to ask somebody to leave. I'm actually in charge of the deck. I've told this guy to stop doing whatever he's doing. There's an issue, whatever, somebody's getting mouthy or whatever it is.
Mhm.
I've tried to deal with it, and it's gone to the point that I need you to leave the pool. I need you outside of the fence.
Good.
You've got to go. And now if they don't go, now that's when I call the police. And I actually do have the authority to tell them to leave.
Mhm.
And so they've been told to leave, they refuse to leave. It's
And
not
these
like,
ones.
I don't need to get somebody from the facility. I don't need to get
It
the,
depends on what the facility says. If they have rules for that kind of thing, some don't, I don't think, at least that I've ever run into. If the facility says you must follow these things, then you gotta follow
I gotta get the
those.
desk person to come and tell this person to leave. And, okay, if that's the case, then that's the case with
Yeah.
that pool.
Right,
And, but we're only doing this for our own pools anyway, so,
right,
yeah.
right. You
Yeah.
would potentially be assisting the home team, however.
Right, and then so that's when, because somebody says, no, I'm a resident here, you can't tell me to leave. Well,
Okay.
This pool's closed to residents right now.
Right.
The swim league has the pool right now, and I'm the authority, and I've asked you to leave, so I'm gonna need you to leave. And if they're still arguing with me, that's when we call the police.
Yeah, or like you said, I like that idea a lot, actually, if there's somebody at the desk. Now, like our pool, the Porpoises pool,
Mm-hmm.
there's nobody really in authority there, there's lifeguards.
Right.
They don't really have the, you know,
You don't have the amenity manager there on,
No.
on a Saturday.
no,
Right.
not usually. He stops by once in a while.
Yeah.
That's about it. So you can call, I can, if need be, I can call over there,
Mhm.
and it's only 2 miles down the road, and they'll come over.
Yeah.
But for the most part, no, I mean, we're on our own out there.
Right.
So.
Well,
in
it's the verbal
my
judo
tenure-
then, you know, you tell the guy to go, he thinks you have the authority, and it's generally probably covers it.
And
This is
again,
prob-
it's all just being as nice as you can,
Yeah.
kill it with kindness. Just
Oh, yeah,
say,
absolutely.
"You're being
We're
a
not
little
jumping straight to
disruptive
this."
here, you know, would you please kindly, you can watch from outside the fence, you're more than welcome to, but please not on the deck.
Yeah, I just wanted to know where the actual line of authority ends. The buck does stop with me. I've told him to leave. Now he won't. Now we go to the next step.
Right.
Yeah.
Which hopefully you keep it in-house, you don't like
Sure.
call the cops all.
Yeah, no, yeah, obviously.
Very rarely happens.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You know.
I've never seen it happen.
To follow up, Jonathan, you asked about when a meet becomes official. In our supplements, it says a regular season meet is official after the backstroke events, which is number 30, event number 30.
Okay.
So,
For duels or for?
regular season meet is official after the backstroke events for all age groups are completed. The score is recorded and awards are presented at that point where the meet is canceled. And then to follow up, I want to make sure that I wrote down a couple things I'm going to email you. Now I'm going to email you the non-emergency number for St. Johns County, so that you have that. I'm also going to email you all the supplements, and I had no idea what these were until I became the president, and I was like, what are these things? But that's how I found out the answer to Jonathan's question about when a meet is over, so you can have those and you can go through, you can have those in your fancy little clipboard. So I'll add the supplements, the non-emergency number, the volunteer link, the HMO flyers, the presentation, and hopefully I can get the incidents forms as well. Thank you guys again for coming today. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. But thank you.